Joining us now, she did last night, is royal editor at TalkTV, Sarah Hewson. We'll get into some of those reflections, but you were here last night, muted crowds, lit by iPhones as the coffin went past. Tell us about that and what's going on right now in private terms inside the palace.
I was really struck by the atmosphere here last night, Peter, because there was a big crowd gathering. They had queued for hours. They were standing for hours in the rain, umbrellas up. But there was a sombre silence that descended. It was very different to what we've seen over the past couple of days here at Buckingham Palace as they waited for the hearse to arrive. It drove down Constitution Hill just behind us, around the Queen Victoria monument behind us, and in through that central gate of Buckingham Palace for the last time. And as it did so, the crowd broke into spontaneous applause and then 3 cheers for Her Majesty the Queen. And that, for me, was a bit of a lump in the throat moment, because I think for so many people who have seen the Queen along her way in Scotland and here, that first sight of the coffin is when it really becomes real. And that first sight made all the more visible because of this hearse that the Queen had been involved in the design of herself. Maximum visibility, big windows, and that coffin lit up as it was straight with the royal standard of the United Kingdom.
Look, I still think it's got to be tough all the way through a hale and hearty period of your life to be planning for your death and how it will be presented to the world. Brits are renowned for this keep calm and carry on. We know that in Australia, and the stoicism. I look at Camilla, now the Queen Consort. She's in her mid-70s. She's in the midst herself of very private grief. She's been at every one of these events with the King. It's got to be exhausting.
And let's not forget, this wasn't a woman who was born into this role. She married into it 17 years ago when she became the Duchess of Cornwall. She now finds herself as Queen Consort. She is the person who has a big responsibility behind the scenes now to support her husband, the King. We saw a little bit of that yesterday with the footage that was broadcast of the King having a little bit of a short temper moment over a pen when he was trying to sign a document in Northern Ireland.
And the pen was leaking for people.
The pen was leaking, and Camilla had to step in and find him a new pen, and he realised he'd signed the wrong date, and she said to him quietly, "Yes, you signed the wrong date earlier too." And you just saw a little bit of that private relationship between the two. She's very calm, she's very measured. She's having to keep him calm because he's on public duty here, and yet he is a son grieving his mother.
People who know her say she's wonderful company. She's got a warm heart. I saw images actually from the church in Belfast, and I think it was the president, Irish president's wife, kissed Camilla on the cheek, and Camilla returned it. That intimacy you don't often see from the royal family. She's really come into her own. She's got a lot of charitable causes. What sort of Queen Consort will she be?
Yeah, I don't know whether you've met her, Peter, but I've met her on
I did meet her once in Sri Lanka, yeah.
And she has a brilliant sense of humour, and she's also very open. She's very willing to engage. There's a difficult relationship at times between members of the royal family and the media. Camilla, took a different approach, was always very engaged. And she has taken on causes that others might not have done. She's taken on causes like domestic violence, rape. She's a big campaigner against osteoporosis, something that her mother died from. Literacy as well as one of her big causes, and that will only become more prominent now as she becomes Queen Consort.
Right, the Countess of Wessex, we'll know her as Sophie in Australia. She's become a quiet star for the royal family. We're told she's very close to the Queen. Her daughter, very close to the Duke of Edinburgh. Carriage riding was their great love.
Inherited her grandfather's
Yes, we saw that in the
carriages.
funeral. There was a bypass, actually. It was an event a few days later, some horse trials, I think, and she drove
the Royal
that.
Windsor Horse Show, and that was a
right.
moment where we saw the Queen, who wasn't particularly well at the time, just before the Jubilee celebrations, had managed to get to this big celebration during the Royal Windsor Horse Show, a pageant that was put on in her honour, and her granddaughter, Lady Louise Windsor, came in the Duke of Edinburgh's carriage, driving his carriage, and I think that was a moment of a brief show of emotion from the Queen there.
So tell us about Sophie. Will she and the Earl of Wessex, Prince Edward, have a role in this new slimmed down monarchy?
I think they will have an increasing role. It is expected that Prince Edward, the Earl of Wessex, will inherit the title Duke of Edinburgh, his late father's title. That didn't happen automatically on his father's death. It's a title that then goes to the now king, and it's up to him to pass it on. It is expected, and therefore Sophie would become the Duchess of Edinburgh. And as you say, an incredibly close relationship between Sophie and the Queen. She called her Mama. She'd lost her own mother some years ago. I used to spend every Christmas Day at Sandringham watching them as they went to church. It was always Sophie who was in the car with the Queen while other members of the royal family walked to church. Yeah. She was the one who accompanied her. They lived nearby on the Windsor estate. She was always popping in and out of Windsor Castle to check in on her. She was one of the first to visit the Queen after the Duke of Edinburgh died. They had an extremely close bond, and the Queen had come to rely on Sophie and respect her counsel and her judgment as well.
Thanks for those insights, Sarah. It's really lovely to hear those today. Thank you.
Thank you.